Hello everyone. Happy to have you in our webinar today. My name is Björn Beeth. I'm the Director of Professional Services here at Searchmetrics, and today I want to give you a quick overview about the big hairy relaunch monster and how to deal with it like a Ghostbuster. As I said, my name is Björn Beeth. I'm the Director of Professional Services for the EMEA region here at Searchmetrics, and Professional Services is the internal consulting department of Searchmetrics. So we are offering all software clients SEO consulting from A to Z, everything which has to do with SEO. Before I joined Searchmetrics, I was responsible for the SEO at Ricardo.ch, a big marketplace in Switzerland, Blick.ch, a big boulevard news site in Switzerland, and I used to live in London, work in London for MBF Global, a big lead generator. You can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter name is Björn Beeth. If you want, you can download the slides here, but you will get an email afterwards anyway with the download link. So as an in-house SEO, you might know quite some scenarios. You're sitting in a meeting with the product management, with product owners, with marketing, with IT. You're sitting in a meeting and they just come up with an idea, hey, we want to do a relaunch in, let's say, Q2 next year. And then you say, yeah, that's great that we relaunch, but you have to tell me before so that I can prepare stuff because it's highly relevant for SEO. And then all of a sudden the product manager tells you, okay, yesterday we just relaunched, and you say, oh, that's good, but you, as I said, you had to tell me. So most of the relaunches actually fail due to bad project management. And the thing is that you never can do a relaunch by yourself and alone because there are too many interests. So you have the product management, as I said, the IT, you have marketing, and you have SEO as well. So what you actually need to do is that you need to team up with all the stakeholders in the company. And the thing is that sometimes, you team up with somebody, but things get forgotten. People don't feel responsible for stuff, and that's why I want to show you the Rusky model, which helped me in my career a lot, because with the Rusky model you can get the project group in, and the relaunch is a big project, in fact. So you get all the people in, and then you give different roles, like the Rusky roles, to dedicated team members. So Rusky stands for Responsible, Approver, Supporter, Consultant, and Informed. And a responsible person, for example, can be the SEO manager. Let's say he's responsible that the project relaunch will be successful. Then the responsible person has an improver as well, which can be the head of SEO or just the manager of the responsible guy. And this guy always needs to be informed and needs to improve every step. And so on and so forth. And then there will be always a supporter. A supporter can be a guy in the IT or a guy at the product management, which is actually executing most of the stuff. When you write a ticket regarding redirection MAC or something like this, then you need to have an IT guy who's actually executing this. On the other hand, you need somebody who's consulting you. Most of the time this is a person who already done a relaunch or already been involved in such a project, so that he can actually consult you whenever you have questions, that they will help you. And at the end there will be somebody who needs to be informed. This is most of the times it's the CEO or C-level, let's say, let's put it like this, who always needs to be informed on the status of each project. With this, if you have defined this, you can actually create a project responsibility assignment matrix where you put all projects, mini projects, sub-projects, you put on this matrix, and you actually define who's responsible for each of those projects. So that helps actually that everybody knows what he has to do or she has to do, and nobody can say, okay, I didn't know this or that. And most of the time, as I said, a relaunch is always a big project and it takes a long time. It's always good to have a roadmap in place where you put a major project with those sub-projects into the roadmap. who's responsible for this, for like the project lead. You can put all these dedicated Rasky persons into this here, and then you will actually showcase the dependencies on each project of the relaunch. This helps to get a good overview about what is coming and what is done already. And then you always have the chance to have a war room. A war room can be a meeting room within the company which you dedicate just to this project, right? So this is something where you have to inform everybody in the company and say, okay, this meeting room is just for a project group, the project group which is responsible for the relaunch. With this war room, you can actually hang up all the mockups which your usability designer is creating, all the mockups on landing pages, on home pages, on product detail pages, and what you have, you just hang it up. And this helps actually when the project team is meeting in this war room to deep dive into the development. So whenever you're speaking about something, you can actually pinpointing with the finger on the mockup and say, you know, I'm talking about this, it's not working, because you should do it like this and like that. So it actually helps to visualize everything you're speaking about. And then, I mean, as I just mentioned, with the relaunch, especially if it's a redesign, there will always be a new usability designer involved. And those guys, they're always working with prototyping tool. And this example here is InVision. It's a prototyping tool. And if you just ask your usability designer to get access to this, and you team up with the usability designer, and you're like in weekly communication and exchange with him, you always are ahead of the time and actually can talk to this guy and say, look, what you have designed here, it might be good for usability reason, or might be good for, it looks good, but on the SEO perspective, it's maybe not combinable. So this actually helps you to be on track of everything they do. And then, like developers, they're always using tools like ticketing tools, just as Jira. Just ask them to get access to this tool so that you always can follow the status quo of certain tickets and of certain parts of the development. It's really helpful, and it's really helpful for you to comment on tickets. So whenever there's something just in before development, you can put your comment in and say, look, the requirement was different, please go again over this ticket. And then don't forget that you have a staging environment. So every big site should have a staging environment where you can test everything before it goes to production. So this is actually then for you as an SEO responsible person, this is the perfect moment where you can jump into and say, look, before you develop this on production, please be aware of this or that. So test everything on your staging environment. So this was like the first wrap up and introduction, kind of a project management approach when it comes to relaunches. And now I want to quickly jump into like the top 2 relaunch types that I know from my career and a hot topic nowadays. So the first one is actually a JavaScript relaunch. Most of the time, or most of the sites which have been out there for ages, they're relaunching nowadays, and most of the time it's a JavaScript relaunch because it's a technology-based decision. It comes from the IT, and the IT the IT actually gives a recommendation to the marketing or product marketing, and they say, yes, let's do it with JavaScript, because you can do a lot of fancy stuff in JavaScript, that's for sure. And the second one is an HTTPS migration, which I have done a lot in my career, but it's not as easy as it sounds, so I just want to quickly jump into this, and then at the end I want to showcase you some most common relaunch mistakes which I came across with, and we have on our desk here our consultants every day, so some of them are quite funny. But let's start with JavaScript. Many relaunches today happen on JavaScript, and most of them which I came across with is React or AngularJS. And if you just check the adoption or just see the adoption rate here, it's crazy, because it really got famous, and a lot of the top 100,000 sites are adopting to this, like React and JavaScript. And with JavaScript, it's this, like this is a very famous example. It's called hulu.com, which, you know, it looks okay on a first glance. But then if you disable JavaScript, this is actually a GIF animation which is not working yet, so I'm sorry for this, but if you disable JavaScript, you will see a blank page. So you will actually see nothing anymore, because this is, everything here is coded in JavaScript. And as every SEO does, it checks the source code, right? And you see, what you can see here from the source code, it doesn't look familiar at all, because you don't have you know, the structure, you're used to it, you don't get all your meta tags, you don't get the code, you are used to it actually, and that's the thing. And even search engines seem to have a problem with this, because this is just the visibility from hulu.com back at the day when they just changed to JavaScript, because it's problematic. And the thing is that, as I mentioned just before, that you wasn't informed, because the developer said so. As I said, you can do fancy stuff with it, and it looks great, but from an SEO perspective, it's a nightmare. It's the worst monster ever. JavaScript is tricky for search engines, that's for sure. This is research which Bartosz Goralewicz just did. He's the CEO of Elevate. He did a lot of research on JavaScript and SEO. And as you can see, we have a lot of search engines which can't actually deal with JavaScript. And even Google, even if they say, and the researcher, that they are okay with JavaScript, it's not perfect yet. And this is Jeff Webley. He is a Google developer, and he's working a lot on AngularJS, for example. And even he says that if you search for any competitive keyword terms, it's always going to be server-side rendered sites. The reason is because although Google does index client rendered HTML, it's not perfect yet, and the other search engine don't do it as well. So if you care about SEO, you still need to have server-side content. I will explain in a later time what it actually means. But first of all, we need to understand how Google works when we want to understand why JavaScript is tricky, right? So Google has a crawler, an indexer, and a query engine. And the crawler does, like on a high level, it crawls the web, it discovers the URLs, parses the HTML source code, extracts those links he finds in the HTML, and sends those links then to the indexer. And the indexer tries to make sense out of the link, analyzes the content and relevancy on the page, and uses a web rendering service called WSR. And this web rendering service is executing actually the JavaScript, similar to the fetch and render function you have in Google Search Console. And this is actually the most important thing here, the web rendering service. It's based on Chrome 41 for now. And this is the magic thing here, because what it does, it extracts the document object model. In short, it's the DOM. And what the DOM is actually doing, like the client, the browser, is getting the JavaScript from the server, and is trying to extract the JavaScript and trying to make understand how the page is structured. So for a browser, it's really important, because then a browser can show you like where's the title, where's the head section, where's the H1, where's some heading, where's some body, where's some link text, etc. pp. So when I say this, I mean that this needs to be extracted like this. This is actually what the browser is doing when it tries to execute JavaScript. So this is really important to know, because with JavaScript, the relationship between the crawler and the indexer gets way more inefficient. And even if it takes too long for a browser or for a client, or like, let's say for the Google bot, it will stop to render the page. And Screaming Frog, those guys from the UK, they figured out on some tests that Googlebot is willing to wait approximately just 5 seconds for the snapshot of rendered content, between, by the way, it needs to be in well before then. So you have to make sure that it's really fast to execute. Otherwise, Google will stop rendering your content and therefore can't index properly. But there's hope when it comes to JavaScript-based websites for now. And this hope is called server-side rendering. And just another excursus here, because we have to understand what it means to have a client-side rendered and a server-side rendering. With client-side rendering, the client, which is a browser, for example, is trying to request a page, and the server is sending a response to the browser, to the client. And the browser then downloads all this JavaScript and executes the JavaScript in the browser. And then the page will be viewable and interactable for a user, let's say. And with the server-side rendered website, it's like the server is sending ready to be rendered HTML response to the browser, so that the browser doesn't need to do it, and the browser renders the page now, and it's immediately viewable, and then the browser is going to the server and downloads all the JavaScript which will be needed to do this fancy stuff in the browser. And this is far more secure and far more quicker, let's say. So with server-side rendering, it's actually working like this. Like there's a request coming, and then the server is actually checking which user agent is coming. When it's a bot, it gets a pre-rendered cache version of the HTML. When there's a non-bot, then it gets a normal page, let's say. And with React, I don't know if some guys of you are planning to move on React, but with React there comes in, because they understood that it's quite hard for search engines, they come with a rendered string function. It's a way, actually, they call it by themselves a browser independent DOM system. So what they do is they put them similar to a browser on the server, which is extracting this JavaScript and doing the snapshot of the DOM and sending that then actually to the browser, so that the browser doesn't need to do the work. And with AngularJS, it's similar. It's called Angular Universal, and with this is like the browser's requesting a page on the Angular server, and the Angular server is sending an HTML response back to the browser, and then the browser is trying to get all the JavaScript which is needed. So the thing is here that with React as well as with AngularJS, it's always HTML first before JavaScript in the browser. And then you have other services, let's say, which doing this pre-rendering. One of this is pre-render.io, but with this, I just have to say, because it's really expensive if you're a big site, because you have to pay the fee based on how many pages you want to have rendered. And if you take like eBay, for example, or like a site like Amazon with millions of pages, it's far too expensive. But what you can do by your own is you can put a headless browser on your server who's doing the HTML snapshot rendering, and then you can do it actually by your own. Ask your developer for a headless browser function. And then with JavaScript, you always should make use of your tools which you can use in order to try to understand how Google sees the page. The first one is fetch as Google is in your search console, where you have on the left side, this is how Google bot saw the page. And if you just load your page in, this is, as I said, it's based on this web rendering service. You see how Google is understanding your page. If you don't have access to Google Search Console, you can use this tool here from technicalseo.com. It's called Fetch and Render as Any Bot. So you can you just drop in your domain, and you're choosing which user agents you want to have, and then fetch and render, and then you get the DOM or the screenshot of the page. Really helpful tool. Another way would be to use a JavaScript crawler such as Searchmetrics JavaScript crawler, which we have in our project area. With this you can get everything you already know from the site structure crawler, but this is just like a crawl of your JavaScript-based website or application. And then it's beautiful, you're actually done. So this JavaScript, just let me wrap up the most important things here. When you are planning to do a JavaScript relaunch, make sure that the IT is thinking about server-side rendered HTML, otherwise you will make it a lot more difficult for search engines to crawl and index your page. So the next thing is HTTPS migration. So as you might know, it's been a ranking signal now since 2014 already. Google was actually publishing this on the Webmaster Central blog in 2014 that it will be an HTTPS ranking signal. We at Searchmetrics, we do every year this ranking factor study, and even there it shows that it gets more and more important every year. And there's another also research from Moss, and they said that the half of the page one at Google is already HTTPS result URLs. So even there, it's really important just to showcase you how important it is. And I have one example. If you ask yourself, okay, does it really give a ranking boost or not? I have one example brought with me from nzz.ch. It's a big news site in Switzerland, and they actually they promoted that in the beginning of this year, in January 2017, they just migrated to HTTPS. And if you take this date in your mind and then look at the visibility from January onwards, it's just crazy how much more visibility they gain. And all they did is this HTTPS migration. Now, I'm not saying it is the HTTPS migration, but it's a kind of strange that it correlates with this, right? And when you ask yourself, okay, what's the point on HTTPS? Even for your users, and if you have an e-commerce site, this is the worst thing you can actually do if you're not on HTTPS. The user gets a notification in the browser that some parts of the site are not secure, or even the whole connection to a site is not secure. So you will not get any conversion on your site with this, because I'm as a user would say, okay, I'm bouncing back here. And as I said, it's not as easy as it sounds that you just redirect from HTTP to HTTPS. What you need to do before is you need to look at all links on your site. Like you look at your rel canonical tag, which needs to be adapted from HTTP to HTTPS, your hreflang tags, your alternate mobile site link tags, your pagination tags, all the CSS files you have on page, all your JavaScript files, images, even the sitemaps need to be exchanged. Social media, links, analytics scripts, ad servers. This is especially important if you are relying heavily on your revenue stream on advertising, because from my experience, these advertising companies which providing you with the ad server, they have heavy problems actually to deliver all these ads in the ad server on HTTPS. So we had a lot of discussion with our advertising company here. I don't know what the problem really is, but this is kind of problematic. So you have to deal with this, especially because otherwise you will have you will have either blank pages or no advertising on your page. And if it's uncertain that the source is available on HTTPS, I have made the experience that you can use either protocol relative URLs or relative URLs. Like protocol relative URLs for all external links, be it your CDN or be it your image servers, or be it like an external request which is needed in order to run the site. So what you do is you just leave out the protocol. So instead of writing HTTP, you just have / and then comes the domain. And for all internal links, except of all these meta tags you need, like rel canonical or alternate tags and so on and so forth, you can use relative URLs, where you just leave out the complete domain and protocol. But just be aware, if you have subdomain with kind of the same structure, then it might be a risk. So if you just run on one domain, then you are actually okay with all the internal links. And the thing here is, if you use this, that you will get rid of all these messages within the browser that there are elements on the site which are not secure. So really helpful. And what you have to think about as well is that you need to migrate your Google Search Console account as well. So set up a new Google Search Console account, get rid of the old one, but not immediately, because you have to double check or you have to monitor actually the indexation rate. And if you're using a disavow file, make sure that you update your disavow file on HTTPS as well. And then if you have done all of this and you actually you're ready to redirect everything, watch your IT, because here I have an example. This is actually a redirect condition in the HE-access file, and the thing here is that it was forgotten to define the redirect, and what happened is that it automatically just put in a 302 redirect, which is it's the wrong redirect, you can see here. And then, as I said, watch and monitor your indexation and de-indexation status, which you can do in your Search Console. And make advantage of Google coming and crawling all your URLs. This is a snapshot of crawling statistic from Google Search Console. What you can see here is, where the dot is, like when we migrated this client to HTTPS, that Google came and crawled all the URLs. And this is something you can take advantage of, because if you have stuff you wanted to change on the page anyway, this is actually the situation where Google comes, crawl out your site, and then detects all the changes which can be evaluated for ranking, for example. So take advantage of Google coming and crawling all URLs. And when you migrate it to HTTPS, you want to take advantage as well of HTTP2. And HTTP2 is a protocol, the new protocol, which is be used for the communication between the client and the server. But until 2015, like all the servers, or everybody actually used the HTTP1 protocol, and since 2015, it's up and running with HTTP2. What the difference is actually is that the delivery of requests is actually going over one TCP connection, and this is called multiplexing. So, and if you just take the left picture here as an example, it's like if you go to a restaurant and you're planning to have a starter and then a main course, a dessert, and then afterwards a drink or so. In the early days with HTTP1, you had to wait. You always had to ask the waiter, can you bring me this or that, and then you have to wait until he was bringing that to you. With HTTP2, the waiters bring everything at the same time. And this is actually, this is making it much more faster. And how fast? You can look this up on www.http2.demo.io. You see that this is a comparison about loading time of pictures. And on the left side, it was loaded under HTTP1, and it was loaded in 1.69 seconds. And on HTTP2, the same picture on 0.72 seconds, which is a lot faster. And I've done that by myself on my blog, and you see, I've nothing. I did nothing else. I just this blog running on WordPress. So if you're running on WordPress, there are plenty of plugins who are actually doing this. Just download the plugin, tick the box, and then activate the plugin. And this is actually what happened, because the site is so much faster. I gained a lot more visibility. And even you can see that even in traffic slightly, that I raised some a bit of traffic. If you have a lot more traffic and you're a bigger site, this will definitely have impact for you as well. And another good thing is when the page loads faster, the crawler is crawling more. As you can see here in this picture, like the time to download the stuff for a crawler is going down, and the crawl rate is going up at the same time. So you should definitely do it and take advantage out of this. And then there's another thing with HTTPS. It's called HSTS. It's a module which you can put on the on your server actually, and this will help to, or what this will not help, this is forcing actually the browser to use the HTTPS URL. So what you're doing here is reducing all the HTTP requests and forcing the browser directly to go to the HTTPS URLs, which will make it a lot faster too. And the adoption here, you should definitely check your analytics with which browser your users are coming. And if they're coming with Chrome or Firefox, you see the different versions here. You definitely check this before you do it, but it's worth it. And what you see then, it's a 307 redirect in your redirect path, and this is actually 307 is an internal redirect. As I said, it's the browser is actually doing this redirect, and the server is forcing the browser, and you can even cache this. You can say, okay, for the next, let's say, year or so, just request HTTPS URLs. Really good. And even there you have tools which you should use. The first one is the Google Search Console, of course, because if you migrate to HTTPS, you should definitely check your crawl errors, because in the crawl errors you can see if anything is going okay or not. The other thing, it's called JITBit. It's a tool I use where you have an SSL check. So you put in the domain, check for SSL errors, and it gives you a list with URLs on your page which have unsecure elements on the site, so you can then go and fix this. And then there's a browser extension which you can add to Chrome or Firefox called HTTP2 and Speedy Indicator. So whenever there is a site running on HTTP2, you can add as a lightning symbol in your browser which you can use, and then you can check the live connections to HTTP2. And of course, it's always when you do a migration or you do a relaunch, definitely use a log file analyzing tool. I'm using LogRunner.io. They really do a great job. And the best thing on it is it has real-time monitoring where you can actually see what resource the crawler is actually requesting crawling in real time. This helps you to detect errors more quickly than ever. And again, a crawler such as Searchmetrics. So with HTTPS, as I said, just to wrap it up, make sure that all internal and external links which are resources which are used to run the page are migrated to HTTPS as well. Make sure that all your sitemaps are adapted and containing just HTTPS URLs, meta tags as well, like hreflang tags, canonical tags, pagination, everything which is a link should be adapted. And then of course make sure that you set up a Search Console account, and your disavow file should be changed as well. So now I want to just showcase you some most common relaunch mistakes which I came across. Some of them are quite funny. I'm not joking, they really exist. So the first one here is that people forgot to no index or handle parameter in search or search URLs. And you see that from this snapshot here from the Search Console, where you have a significant or catastrophic actually raise and increase of index pages. And you can ask yourself, man, this can't be because you don't even have that much pages. So it went up from, let's say, 2 million up to nearly 8 million pages. And what happened here is that this website actually had a search bar on the site where you could look up for jobs. So let's say you want to have a job as a controller. Let's say these are different cities in Germany which you can use. You can also say London, Manchester, or Leeds. And then you say, okay, find those jobs. And what it does then, it generates an URL, of course, with all your filters here, and it even generates own canonical tag, and all of them are indexed and not blocked as well. And this happened after the relaunch. So this is a really bad idea, and you definitely should take a look at those details. Sometimes this gets forgotten. Then there's a really famous example from one site here in Germany. It's called planet-wissen.de. What they forgot when they relaunched, so they built it actually a new URL structure. What they did is they forgot to redirect from the old URL structure to the new URL structure. And that's the better thing you can do, because Google need to find all these new URLs, and we need to recrawl it, need to reevaluate them, and so on and so forth. And you're losing all the signals which you are generated already on the old URL structure. And I mean, it's a completely disaster if you just forget to redirect those URLs. Same thing is with this happens a lot of time too, is that people forget to redirect the images. They redirect everything else, but they forget to redirect the image URLs. And this is another quite nice example. It's an increase of redirect change, like a massive increase of redirect change. What happened here is that you know, you have an URL which redirects, which don't have a trailing slash at the end of the URL, but it redirects with 301 to the trailing slash at the URL, and then the URL with trailing slash has a meta-canonical tag to the version without trailing slash, and this generates a redirect chain, and this is really stupid. So what I want to say here is that you really have to pay attention to the details, and this often gets forgotten. And when it comes to the HTTPS migration, there's one thing which we just came across. I didn't know that before as well, but you have really to pay attention to the certificate you're just choosing, because this is a browser a notification we got for a certificate given out by the company Symantec. And Symantec has a beef with Google, because Google is actually believing or saying that Symantec is giving out certificates to websites which aren't actually safe or secure. So if you are running on HTTPS, just check your certificate, because this certificate will be disrupted by Google in the upcoming release of Chrome, which will be, I think, in Q1 or Q2 in 2018. So check if your certificate is running on Symantec. If this is the case, you should definitely think about changing the certificate. And then another thing which is quite famous, let's say, is that people often for deleting important internal links. So they do a redesign or relaunch and redesign and say, okay, we don't need these links, these links, these links. We don't need this part of content. This link box here is ugly. We just get rid of this or that. But nobody actually evaluated how important those internal links are. And I have one example from a publishing site. You can see it, they had a nice increase of visibility, but then they lost suddenly a lot of visibility again. And this was because as a publishing website, you are actually heavily need to rely on an archive, let's say, because all these articles you are publishing need to be archived. So what they did here is, like, they had this archive where you had links in the calendar to every day. So every day was creating all the articles which were published. And they changed the technology behind this calendar, because before I was plain links, even with a pagination inside, but then they changed it and they just generated this calendar over JavaScript. And this immediately took away all the internal links which were really important. The other thing is that they disabled topic pages, and topic pages for a publishing site is like an internal linking engine. It's a machine. So what they do here is, like, it's similar to a WordPress tagging system, let's say. what they do here is like they're creating topic pages based on certain text or keywords, let's say, and then if you click on one of these sites, then you come to a curated page where all the articles based on that relevant keyword are curated. And they took away all of them, and this is something which had direct impact in the visibility as well. And one of the most famous things is that after a relaunch, people forget to redirect, or like they just got rid of the robots text, which is a crawling directive for search engines. And when you said before, okay, don't use this door, but then all of a sudden you say to search engine, okay, now you can use all the doors. Google's crawling everything which shouldn't be crawled. And there's a tool which is called visualping.io, where you can track certain or more important pages, let's say. One of these pages should be definitely a robots text. If there's a change in robots text, it gives you a ping in form of an email and says, look, this is the old snapshot. We are detecting there's something changed. You might have a look. And the other thing is the visibility guide for any other errors in the Searchmetrics suite, where you can actually filter what you want to have monitored. So if there's a status code change, if there's the 301 redirect which wasn't there before, if there's any change in anything which is technically redirect change, etc. with PP, then send me a link. You can then filter by these issues and put in the most important URLs, and then you get the notification. Quite helpful for big sites. And if you need help for everything, let's say migration or relaunch, you can call us, the consulting team at Searchmetrics. We are happy to help. And with this, I want to end this presentation, and I hope that you have a lot of questions now which I can answer. Yes, the session will be recorded and shared. You will get everything after the session by email. Regarding one of the common errors, the sudden increase of index page on Search Console. How did you find out it was the search in that case? A Search Console doesn't show you which pages has index not blocked, just the plain number. Often those things aren't shown by other crawling tools. A really good question, Marion. The thing is, if you have such an increase in the Search Console, you need to run a crawler over the site. So you can use the search engine crawler, the Searchmetrics crawler, the site structure crawler, and you will find then suddenly URLs which have a parameter on the URL, or URLs which wasn't there before. And if this is the case, you can lead that back to an issue. With this case, with this example I just showed, we knew that those URLs didn't exist before, and then you need to do a bit of, Sherlock Holmes work and try to find out where on the page those URLs were generated. And in this case was the search bar, and was then actually an easy fix, let's say. But you have to invest some time through all the pages and trying to find the errors. Okay, so well, then I thank you for joining the webinar. I hope it was interesting and gave you some nice insights. And as I said, if you are just before a relaunch and you need help, then get in contact with your CSM, and we will try to help you on this. Thank you for joining. See you next time. Bye-bye.